mode.
All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to CTL's Education Professional Development Series. My name is Laura Helms. I'm the content manager here at CTL, and today I'm also joined by Walter Grimmer at CTL. For those of you who are not familiar with CTL, we're headquartered in Portland, Oregon, and are providing innovative IT solutions to education and government customers for over 26 years. We are a Google for Education premier partner, and some of our most popular products include our brand of Chrome devices, convertibles, touchscreen monitors, and two-in-ones designed especially for K-12 education. Over the last 4 years, we've worked with Google to introduce a line of ruggedized CTL Chromebooks that have been recommended by PC Magazine as the best choice for Chromebooks in education. As part of our commitment to education, CTL is offering monthly professional development webinars for our education customers. These webinars, like the one you're in now, will include a variety of topics relevant to K-12 EdTech, but will have a big focus on Google Apps for Education and Chromebooks in the classroom. Today's webinar is on Be Internet Awesome, Google's new digital citizenship curriculum, and is presented by Catherine Liebig of our professional development partner, Education Service District 112 of Vancouver, Washington. But before we get started, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping so you guys will know how to participate in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of the example attendee interface, and you should see something like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. If you're listening in on your computer system by default, you can continue to do that, or if you would prefer to join in over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed for you. You'll have an opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. Go ahead and send in these questions anytime during the presentation, and we'll collect all these and address them during the QA session at the end of today's presentation. If we happen to run out of time and don't get to your questions today, you will be contacted by your sales representative to make sure all your questions are answered. But before we begin, I'd like to take a poll related to digital citizenship curriculum. So on your screen, you should see a new interface, and we want to know if you are currently teaching digital citizenship in your classroom. Please answer yes and are using Be Internet Awesome, Google's new curriculum, or yes, but you have your own curriculum, or no, but would like to be teaching digital citizenship in your classroom. So go ahead and cast your vote. We'll wait for those to come in. Give you guys just another couple seconds here. Excellent. It looks about half are teaching digital citizenship, but have their own curriculum, and about half aren't, but would like to. Let's get back to our webinar. Great. So today's presenter is Catherine Liebig, again of our professional development partner, Education Service District 112 of Vancouver, Washington. And she's going to be talking to us today about Be Internet Awesome by Google. So go ahead, we'll make you presenter, Catherine, and you can get started.
All righty, let me get this screen up. All right, looks like you guys can see that. So hello, thanks for coming. I'm Catherine, and I am the Professional Development Manager at ESD 112 for Digital Learning, as Laura said. And in my work with the school districts in our region, and we have about 35 districts, some rural, some urban, big, small, all over the place, we are often asked about what kind of software to use for various things. And one of the things that has been coming up a lot lately is digital citizenship. And people are starting to become aware that this is something they should be thinking about. And for some people, they've kind of heard the term, but they don't even really know what it means. So I wanted to review that really quickly before we go into the specific tool that we're talking about today. So digital citizenship is just basically the act of teaching students how to behave when they are online. And we used to call some of this civics, and sometimes we would call it character. All of those things are pretty good terms to relate to digital citizenship. It's just about the really unique environment that the internet affords for people, not just students, but adults also, to get themselves in trouble in kind of new and unique and interesting ways, as all interpersonal communication can get us into some kind of issues here and there. But like I said, the online environment gives us some kind of unique places that we can stumble. And so one of the things that public schools have to deal with is that internet safety curriculum or filters and other features that protect our children are required by various government regulations. There's a CIPA and COPPA, which are protection acts for young kids on the internet. And if your district uses E-rate, which is a way for districts to get funding for high-speed internet, and almost all districts do use this funding, they're required to have some internet safety and some digital citizenship curriculum and filters in place for their students. Now, there's a lot of crossover between internet safety and digital citizenship. They're not exactly the same thing. Digital citizenship is a little broader, and internet safety can refer more to filtering and that kind of thing. But I'm using both terms here because they kind of dovetail together with what you're doing in the classroom as well as what your tech team is doing behind the scenes. When we look at how our students are learning today, tech tools aren't going away. They're always going to be glued to a phone from here on out. So those of us who grew up and did not have that being a thing, it might look a little weird to us, but that is how it's going to be. These students are using these tools. They're going to use them at work. They're going to use them in their personal lives, and they will be using iterations of these tools that we can't even imagine yet. So we really need to get the basics down. And I think, some of the generations that grow up with this will actually be better at this than we have been as time goes on. But for now, we need to make sure that they have these skills. And a lot of times parents don't know where to start. Like there is a band of parents, I guess, that aren't even aware of what their students are doing online or on mobile devices. They don't think about digital citizenship or internet safety. They don't understand how bad cyberbullying can get. And the fact that the bullying that we always kind of had periodically in schools now can follow you around 24/7 is really damaging to students. And so some parents just don't even know that they need to address that. Or their answer is, we're just going to take away all the devices. Well, we know that's not going to work for our 21st century learners. So as schools, we've got to have a different approach. And then there are a lot of parents who do care about that. They have a concern, but they don't know where to start. They don't know what their kids are running into. They don't know what to tell them. They don't know what to warn them about. And so, excuse me, teaching these skills in your classroom really does have an effect on keeping students safe and can have a really big impact if we start pretty young with these skills. Another thing that's happening is that devices are coming into our classrooms in unprecedented numbers, and it's happening farther down in the grade band like we didn't ever have. But we figured, oh, little kids don't need tablets or Chromebooks or anything, and now we've got them going all the way down to kindergarten. We have some state testing that requires that students be pretty fluent users of a keyboard by second, third grade. So there are some classroom management issues that are introduced along with those devices. And teaching digital citizenship gives you a way to kind of teach those skills that are going to make your life easier in the classroom as well, because you can include all of the how do we treat the devices but I think Google has made a really great tool here. And you don't have to be a Google app curriculum, free to teachers, and it's really aimed at grades 3 through 5, but I have heard of some teachers using it for lower grades or higher grades. So it would probably be a little bit adaptable. I mean, I don't know that it would be appropriate for high school, but I sincerely hope that most of our kids are getting some appropriate information about this before high school too, as we go on. So Internet Awesome comes in 2 parts, and it has a downloadable content kind of packet, and it has Interland, which is the online games that are pretty cute and engaging to help students learn and cement some of these concepts. There are a few other links too that I'll share at the end that have some other information for you about how to use this tool. The downloadable content contains a parent welcome letter. So if you're going to start teaching this and you're wondering, you know, how do you explain to parents why they're playing these little video games or why they're coming home and talking to them about cyberbullying, that letter would be something you could send home or adapt and make your own to inform your parents. It also has lesson plans, and it does have standards correlated to it. So then if you're needing to explain to if this is not a school-wide or district-wide initiative, and you have to explain to your administrator why you're doing it, this is a good way to do it. It's like there are some correlated standards. The ISTE student standards, especially, are being adopted by multiple states, and I know that's what we're adopting here in Washington State, pretty much making them our own digital citizenship standards. Boy, this is a bad day for me to not be able to say that word, citizenship standards. So this is something you can show with standards correlated, and of course it brings in some other Common Core standards and other content areas. You know, there's some reading, there's some discussion, some writing, some expression. So this is a good use of your time, in my estimation. So for every lesson, you have an overview. You've got themes that sum up what is happening in each lesson. And then you have goals for the lesson. So you have very clear learning targets and outcomes for your students. And then it shows you the linked standards, essential vocabulary for each lesson, which I think is great that they've pulled that out for you, and the activities that the students do. The activities could be probably up to 1 class period each. They're not really customize those a lot to make them work for whatever is going on in your classroom. And the cool thing about it is that they're all offline. You don't have to have a class set of Chromebooks or tablets or computers or anything for the students to do this. And if you have a cart and you only have the cart a couple times a day, you could do this at a different time of day if you wanted. And so because you have these like 5 activities for each theme or each lesson, you could save the unplug or the online activities for the end, or you could fit those in wherever your computer time works for you. And so the last activity of every single one is an Interland game, and it's pretty cute and just kind of cements the concepts of what the students have been. So they have themes for each lesson, and I've got these are the little badges, and I'm not sure if the animation is really showing up, but these are actually animated GIF badges that students can put into their social media profiles or something, if that's something you guys do. For each theme, they have a little badge, and then each of these lessons are configured the way that I just mentioned. So for this one, it's Being Internet Smart, which teaches the students how to share things in a smart way, as opposed to oversharing or giving information to people that they don't know well. And it also talks to them about their digital footprint, which is something that I think a lot of adults and a lot of teachers I work with need to be a little bit more aware of as well. So you could learn some things too, maybe doing this with your students. Digital footprint, meaning just how do I look on the internet? If someone Googles me, what's the first thing they get? And I do Google myself periodically because I'm online a lot, and I have to look at those first few hits at least and go, okay, is somebody going to be scared if they see my name come up? Or is there someone else with my name who's doing some weird stuff that I might need to make sure that it's clear we're not the same person? So that's the kind of thing that it sounds like a heavy thing to lay on a young child, but it is something they're going to need to be aware of, because what we put up on the internet is forever and it does not go away. And when we're young and impulsive, I mean, I cringe thinking about the things I probably would have done on social media when I was in high school. So I think it's good for kids to at least have that in their mind and be thinking about it from a pretty young age. And all of the scenarios that are presented in these lessons are appropriate, age appropriate. They're not scary, but they are, realistic. They kind of tell the kids, what could happen. The second theme is alert, and that talks to students about fake information, phishing. How do you detect when there's a scam going on? How do you avoid being taken in by that? And I certainly know a lot of adults who could use this theme or this lesson because they're getting pretty tricky and pretty clever with this stuff. And a very large percentage of all internet scams are what's called social engineering, which means that they know how to talk to people in a way that can get information out of them, that can get you to trust them. And people hand over all kinds of information, from social security numbers, credit card, bank account, passwords, pictures that they maybe shouldn't be sharing because someone socially engineered them into doing it. So this is a thing that I think students need to be aware of also from a very early age as well. Internet Strong talks to them about passwords and personal information. So it does kind of echo back to the first one, which is smart, talking about sharing, but it also talks about determining what kind of information is personal and who you share it with, and what are our passwords about? Like, what is the purpose of a password? How do you make a good one? And who do you share it with, if anyone? So that's a pretty important pillar of this information too. Kind is an anti-online bullying theme, talks to them about how to be an upstander online instead of a bystander, how to support people who are being bullied, and how to deal with when you encounter them yourself. And this one was actually my favorite part of the Interland game. It's got a really cute little game that goes with it. And the last one is Brave. It's not really structured as a lesson unit like the other four are, but it's kind of a discussion guide for, like, what if something goes wrong? What if I did give some personal information away and I suddenly realized, oh no, I shouldn't have done that? Or what if I have, connected with someone who's doing something not good? Or what if I saw something I maybe probably shouldn't have seen? What do you do then? Because the students need to know that it's not the end of your life if you do kind of mess up with some of these things, but they do need to know how to handle it. And so I think the idea is that after you've gone through these other four pillars and these lessons, students will have a good grounding in, what kinds of things could go wrong. So now let's talk about the general, like, how do we feel about that if something has gone wrong? So the main themes, like I said, each one of them has a lot of unplugged activities. And then we have Interland, which is pretty cool. And this kind of reinforces the stuff that they've learned. It has some simulations, and some of them they're not realistic simulations. They're in this game world, but they're pretty engaging. And I'm going to show you how it looks really quickly. Hopefully you guys can still see this window. Good, looks like you can. And so when you load it up, it'll actually read these things out loud to you. It is definitely aimed at younger students. I'm just going to show you a little bit of how this looks. There's my cute little guy. Oh, and he's making noise. Sorry, I'm going to make him be quiet for now. I don't know if you could hear that, but it does have some music. So something to be aware of if you have speakers on your classroom computers. This is our little internaut, and he is the guy that is learning about how to get along on the internet. So he can go to any of these little worlds. So this is the don't fall for fake. Person. Tower of Treasure is about passwords, securing your secrets. And this last one is my friends who might be in trouble and need an upstander to help them. It's taking a So we have some sad guys there that are getting bullied, and it tells me that I need to give them support. So I have tools that I can jump around and get my little tools to block them, report them. I can put up walls in front of them so that they can't bother me anymore. And then I can lend support to people who are being bullied as well. And so none of these require a mouse or anything. You just kind of use your arrow keys and then you share with that kind of thing. And then I can jump up here and go. So it's kind of a typical 3D kind of game, but I think it's low bandwidth enough that you could have a bunch of kids playing it at once and not have much of a problem. So that's the basics of what Interland looks like. I'm going to actually skip over here and show you their main resources page if you haven't been there yet. And they have some videos here if you're still like not sure what it's about or you want to see it in action in some classrooms. They do have some videos here about how it works in a classroom and stuff that maybe you could share with a parent if they were concerned. It goes through the lessons here. And this is where you would download the curriculum. At the beginning of your unit, you can download the Internet Awesome Pledge. And that is something that you can actually share with parents so that they will know what you're learning and everybody signs that they're going to do this. Kind of nice to involve the families because this is not something they just do at school. And then this Internet Awesome curriculum PDF, this is where it lines out every lesson that you're going to use. So here's your intro letter or email template. Here are your lessons. So here's Share with Care. And I really think this is a very well organized lesson plan. I think you could pull this out and just use it without very much prep, which I think is super important because we're all so busy. And they start with vocabulary, which you could work on in a number of ways. You could integrate that into any other kind of language activity you were doing. And then here are the activities. So they give you goals for the activity, discussion points for you to talk with the students, and then an activity. And again, these are all unplugged. So they make up a secret, they tell their partner, and then they discuss who would you tell this kind of a secret to, and then they share out. So you could make, these could go a lot of different directions depending on the students that you're dealing with, the level, the age, and the unique kind of situation you have. This one is the profile guessing game where they actually have some activities that are some handouts that you can give to the students. Excuse me. And so they look at each student's online activity and they draw some conclusions about that student. And then they talk about what people might be assuming about them or how that would work in their lives. So that's an example of how these activities would look. Whoops, sorry. They also have some built-in badges and certificates. So the animated GIF badges that I was showing you earlier on the other page there are something you can distribute to students or use on a web page or in your classroom, Google Classroom or whatever you're using. And they're also printable certificates so that when they get through that whole the whole unit, you can download that, and each of your students can take one of those home and show their parents that they have accomplished this. I think it's pretty neat little wrap up for the whole program. So back to these links and resources. That main page, if you go to no other link here, I believe this will be sent out to you after the webinar. If you go to no other link, this will take you to everything else. But I pulled out a couple of other resources, pages in here. There is a good video to Internet Awesome that video intro that you can send to parents or whomever is wondering what you're doing here. Link out to the standards for the ISTE student standards for digital citizenship, which I think are important for teachers to review before they do something like this. And we're looking here at number 2. These are great students to be aware of if you have devices in your classroom anyway, because there's some great 21st century learning stuff that kind of involves technology. So the digital citizen standards want them to manage their digital identity, engage in positive, safe, legal, ethical behavior, know how to use intellectual property and share. This is something that's pretty important that I think a lot of teachers and students kind of overlook, because it's so easy to go, oh, everything on the internet's fair game, and we're going to not kind of pay attention to whether it's okay to grab that photo and use it. And we all have a hard time with that from time to time. So that's a good one to be aware of. And then managing personal data, maintaining privacy, very important thing for students to know about. I've also added in a couple of extra background resources for you. If you're not familiar with Common Sense Media, it's a really great repository of information. There's a parent section here, and that's where you can go if you, for instance, your kid wants to go see a movie, you haven't seen the movie, you want to know if it's appropriate. And it takes a very balanced approach, and it gives each type of media, movie or TV show, a rating, and it'll say, here is the amount of sex, violence, language, drug references, whatever you might be concerned about, without kind of coming at it from a very conservative or a very liberal standpoint. It just tells you what's there, so that as a parent, you have good information to make your own decision about that media. And I share this with parents and teachers all the time. But they have also a really great educator section. They review software for ed tech tools, and there's some PD in there. There's a lot of really good stuff. But the digital citizenship page gives you a scope and sequence for what you should teach, and a whole bunch of information about their lessons here. And they have some supplemental lessons. If you have students who are having a hard time and maybe the Internet Awesome is not enough, you could come here and look for some supplemental materials. And they do have some little online games and interactives here too. And last but not least, Google has also created some pretty cool professional development online for teachers. And it's not just about some of the stuff that you see in this sidebar is about using Google tools specifically. If you want Google Apps training, that's one way to start. But they have a whole digital citizenship and safety course for teachers. And I think you can see right here, 10 to 15 minutes per section. And I think that would be really well worth your time to go through. And if you sign in to the training center with your Google account, you will end up with a little badge that says that you're a digital citizenship maven or something. I can't remember exactly what it says, but it does give you a little kind of a micro credential that shows that you've had some training in this. And I think that's a neat thing to have. So that is the basics of Internet Awesome. Anybody have questions?
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Walter here. Got a question in the sense of the whole Google citizenship there. If you were to do it, how much time does it take to do the whole thing? That was one question.
Well, when I look at these, they're not super specific about it. Let me go back to the see the curriculum here. For each one of these, let me scroll down a bit. It tells you, you can see all of the activities at once. For me, when I look at each one of these activities within a lesson, I would think these could be, between 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how much engagement you're getting and how deeply you need to discuss with your kids, how young they are. I would think it would take maybe 30 to 40 minutes with third graders, maybe a little longer with fifth graders who are getting a little more into the social media and the, you know, being adolescent type of stuff. And so they don't really tell you this is going to take X minutes or whatever. But for this, I would say that each one of these is could be an hour.
Okay.
And so if there's 4 activities in each of these segments, that's, you know, you could keep this going for a while. And then the interland could just be however long you wanted to devote to it. So I would say 4 hours here, 3 hours here, 3 hours there, 4 hours or 5 hours there, depending.
That's great. That leads to a couple of general questions. I think it was good. Is first of all, you roll this out. Have you seen from your experience through different schools, do you come back to this every year? Do you do it twice a year? What's the cycle of material like this in the school?
That's a good question. And I have just kind of unleashed this idea on a few schools I'm working with. So I'm hoping to have more data on how it works for them soon. But with our other digital citizenship curriculum that we've used in the past, either the Common Sense Media, or we used to use Life Online with many of our districts, they had to kind of come up with a scope or a progression as a district. So it's really great if this happens from the district level down for you, so you know that you're not duplicating effort. But you may decide that you're just going to do like the first 2 strands, the share with care and don't fall for fake with younger kids. And then maybe you do secure your secrets and cool to be kind with older kids. So if these are 3, 4, and 5, if you maybe were able to do some kind of vertical teaming to plan for that, and maybe fit it in with some other units of instruction that it would work with, I think you could probably, instead of repeating, you could probably spread that out amongst those 3 grades. And if you're in a district where they have no opinions on digital citizenship, you can probably do what you want. But if you are really thinking that this is something your district needs, it wouldn't hurt to maybe send it to, I don't know, a curriculum person or a principal or somebody that you think could help you advocate for that, so that they would support it, because it really is simple enough that I think it would catch the eye of a curriculum director and go, oh yeah, this is easy, we can do this, you know.
No, excellent. And it is a nice PDF, it's in PDF format, so it's really easy to get around. The other question was, how is, in other citizenship stuff, you involve the parent in the sense of something. Do you have a sense here of what the parent would be involved with this citizenship?
Well, they do have the little pledge that you can sign, and the parent letter, which I think it would be really important to let them know. And what they do here is they explain, what's going on. And like they even mention here, you might pick up a few tricks yourself, because we have so many adults who have no clue about any of this stuff. And it continues to amaze me sometimes, the things that I hear teachers saying they do on the internet. I'm like, oh, please don't do that. That's not going to be good. So I think you could go, again, you could kind of go as far as you wanted with that. You could just send the letter home. That pledge, I think is, yeah. This one, I think, would be really great to just have a discussion getting started with parents who maybe don't know what else to do.
No, excellent. What I've seen sometimes schools do with citizenship, they send this long list of how much it's going to cost if a unit breaks, and this kind of stuff kind of gets lost. So no, that's really good. And that's where the next question comes is it's early in this phase, but schools do have other stuff, part of citizenship, how you maintain the equipment, breaking it, and stuff like that. Any sense there of how to integrate the two there together?
the hardware,
yeah,
classroom
you kind of
management and
like,
handling. Yeah.
you know, that document they always send out at the beginning of letting the parents know type of thing.
Yeah. The acceptable use policy or whatever they
Yeah.
have kids sign. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of ways you could go about that. If I'm talking to tech directors who are the people wrangling the equipment, or instructional technology folks, I'm going to say, you guys need to get together and roll this into your acceptable use policy and say, you know, here is our classroom management, physical handling, making sure devices are charged, carry them with 2 hands and all that cool stuff that we do. And here is your actual behavior while the device is in your hands and the consequences of how does this affect your education if you're not able to use those things in a reasonable way. You know, I would say optimally you're integrating those two at the top level so that every year what's expected for both handling and behavior is rolled out at the same time. But if that's not something that you can do as a teacher, I would think that you, one of my favorite activities to do is to have this, like, kind of crowdsource it, have the students be really student-centered and have them come up with some handling rules and behavior rules for what happens when you use devices in the classroom. And of course you can guide them as much as needed there, but then have them come up with them and have them create videos, posters, whatever works for your group to share with each other. And even sometimes have a buddy classroom to trade those rule sets or posters or whatever with is really fun. And I think you could roll that in and then have it be part of your Internet Awesome. Say, hey, we're going to talk about how to handle the equipment, and then we're going to talk about how to handle ourselves. I think it would work really well.
Perfect. That was exactly what I was thinking of there. Thanks so much. There was one question about how do we get the presentation, and we'll be releasing the complete webinar to each attendee and the information on that. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. Thanks, Catherine. I'll turn it over. That was all that I had for questions. I'll turn it over to Laura.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much again, Catherine. Let's go ahead and show my window again here. Sorry about that. Great. So again, in reference to the question we received on when you can, or how you can get a copy of this presentation, we will be emailing out a link to watch the recording of this video tomorrow, and then it should also be posted on our CTL webinars page that you can see on the screen there. So if you would go there, probably by the end of the day, we should have that recording up there. And if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me at the email address you see on the screen, lholmes@ctl.net. And I can get you any of the links you saw here today, any of the other resources that Catherine offered. So great. Thank you all so much for coming today. Thanks again, Catherine. That was absolutely super, super cool. There's also a blog on this subject at the CTL website that you can read a little bit more that Catherine wrote for us as well. Thanks all so much. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.